one question mark with Azuri. I don't think that's right. I think Alan Lau is one of our 7-0 players alongside Liam Bennett, who is also a 7-0 player.
I also believe that Alan Lau is not starting on 40 life.
Yeah, that would be a little high.
I know he would like to. We do see toxic tips out of Alan Lau. And a three-piece equipment for Liam Bennett. Liam Bennett having the advantage on the sort of equipment suite here. Liam also one of our only Icelander players, I believe, in the constructed portion that does have this kind of record. So starting out with the Spider's Bite here for Alan Lau.
Yeah, and this is what Alan Lau is going to be looking to do. Spider's Bite, Spider's Bite, Spider's Bite. Looks like Liam going to go ahead and get value out of that Seeker's Hood right now. Going to get a trap put to the bottom of the deck. Worth noting, Brendan, should there be attack reactions trying to force through lethal, that's about the time where you want to get through that second cycle, see that trap the second time. Again, just another Spider's Bite here from Alan Lau. Little bit of an equipment deficit on Alan's side. As we said, I don't think this draft went exactly like Alan wanted it to go. Only one piece of equipment, maybe a bit of a middling power suite. Not really those haymakers when it comes to the attacks that are going to be dropped in by Azuri. But like I said, destructive deliberations all over the place. I think we are going to see a lot of those.
Yeah, so Liam Bennett here, obviously one of two Azaleas. Brian, I have to ask you, do you feel like the Azalea decks, when there's two in a pod, come out to be somewhat even, or do you think it's a bit feast and famine where you have one really good deck and then one sort of mid to average Azalea
I think
deck?
You can absolutely support two solid Azalea decks at the table. There's no reason why both these players can't have great decks. And looking around, they both looked very solid, honestly. I think, you have to have that mix of pumps, red arrows. There's sort of like A plus B you're trying to do with Azalea. And when I looked at these decks, they were doing it. They had exactly what they needed. So, maybe not the density of setup cards that we saw something out of Tao Tao's deck yesterday, which was just basically perfect, like exactly what he wanted to do as an Azalea drafter. But I think both these decks will be very functional. And there you see a second trap pitched by Liam. So Liam may be prioritizing these traps a little bit more. And I will tell you, when I was looking at Liam's draft, I did think there was a moment where he might be actually a Riptide drafter.
Yeah, another piece of mind as well, which, like you said, would have fit quite well into the Riptide deck. I know when we look back at Tao Tao's draft from yesterday, what Tao Tao had outside of the pumps, which is obviously critical to Azalea, was a lot of the top of the deck manipulation, a lot of Spire snipings, the equipment, a lot of stuff to sort of
critical for these decks.
Yeah, reduce that variance and make sure that he gets those big dominated arrows. We saw what can happen when you don't hit the arrow off the top of the deck, and actually lost Tao Tao to the game later in the series.
Yep. And Alan again just blocking out, finds a clean 5 block there. And it's back to the Spider's Bite. This is what Alan wants to accomplish. Just get in there for the chip damage. Spider's Bite number 2. Going to be a lot of this, Brendan. He has to be grindy with the card quality in his deck. The damage numbers just aren't going to be there if he doesn't get enough points off of those Spider's Bite. Alan very clearly understands that.
Yeah, it looks like his second cycle hand as well is set up with 2 yellows, 1 red, and 1 being destructive deliberation. So something to keep in mind, I think, for Liam as we head into that second cycle potentially. And the initial swap target for Alan Lau will most likely be that destructive deliberation.
Yeah, scout the periphery, going to be the play here from Liam, trying to get that arrow critically on the top of the deck, start to dominate. Not quite the explosive first turns we saw yesterday from our limited Azalea, so things going a little slower on Liam's side. That's okay, though. Plenty of time. You make those big arrows patiently, you will do what you have to do. And it looks like, again, a lot of pitch stacking going on here. This is a red Withering Shot being put to the bottom. So that second cycle for Liam already setting up to be pretty strong. Does load a Withering Shot as well. And again, just firing off the top. No arrow on top, I'm assuming. And it's going to be a Withering Shot 4-8, asking for some blocks out of Alan Lau.
Yeah, and I think that Liam will have to pay a lot of attention to a second cycle because of the traps and the peace of mind that is also down there. Will need to hit the arrows that he is stacking here. I do want to ask you, Brian, how do you feel about traps and instant speed prevention effects in a deck like Azalea?
They're important. They are important. Like you have to be very focused on your arrow count. That is always going to be your priority. You want to do your A plus B game plan. But I do think having flexibility in all of your decks, it's quite good. And I know Peace of Mind, very polarizing card in this format. People go back and forth on how good it is. I think it's quite good. I just like having those outs to things like Dominate Arrows, like these devastating assassin attack reactions that they are capable of producing. I just think it's good to have flexibility in these spots. Games of Outsiders they're not simple. They're diverse. They change in myriad ways. Sometimes they're aggressive, sometimes they're grind fest, and you have to be willing to play every single game possible.
So I would say at this point we could maybe start to suspect Alan Lau's game plan as a sort of fatigue-oriented game plan. I do think that he is going to take the value play when he can. We will be probably presented with a question soon enough from Liam where Alan Lau will be will be asked to either block out with some number of a hand and not attack back, or take a value-oriented play. I think right there is going to be our pivot point in knowing Alan Lau's ultimate strategy. But I would extrapolate from here, saying that Alan Lau is likely looking to somewhat run Liam out of threats and just chip down the Spider's Bite and swap in when he can.
Yeah, Alan just very happy. Played defensively, turns back here to Liam. Is going to be another arrow.
And this is best case scenario for Alan, to be honest.
Yeah, there's no dominate threat thus far. Alan very comfortably preserving life total. And there's an interesting sort of dynamic that occurs when you're playing against Azalea. You sort of want to take your blocks where you can. You may get to the late game and find you do not have the option to actually commit defensive cards. So at that point, you need to have gotten enough of a life buffer where you're actually able to weather some of those explosive dominated arrows. And I think Alan doing a good job of that. It's just going to be a question of, does he have the threat density in deck? And that's why these Spider's Bites are going to be so important. You're going to see a lot of 2 Spider's Bite turns from Alan as he tries to get in that chip damage, slowly work Liam down while playing defensively.
Mm-hmm. Interested to know what Alan has in his arsenal right now. I think we'll get a tell soon when there is a big dominator arrow if a prevention or trap is run out in defense, or if it is potentially a swap target. I think I would err on the side of it maybe being a more defensive option, just saving that for when one of these critical arrows come out. With dominating some sort of pump effects, we saw Tao Tao utilizing toxicity yesterday, dealing 5 damage, and there we go. We see the Peace of Mind. It is a defensive card out of the arsenal for Alan Lau here, fully blocking this attack from Liam.
Yeah, interesting decision there. You could have tried to hold on for a little bit more value, keep that Peace of Mind floating for a little bit longer, and make sure it was applied to a dominated attack. But I get what Alan's doing here. And I'll tell you, there aren't a lot of those type of defensive setups in Alan's deck. Not something he prioritized very high. Just really about Spider's Bites. That's what the game plan is here. Grind, grind, grind. And you look at the cards that are being pitched for Alan. You see the Destructive Deliberations. You see the Humbles. When we come back around, landing a Humble on a critical turn can just be actually it for Azalea. You can completely shut down what they're pitch stacking to. So it is a very unique approach Alan takes to drafting outsiders, I think. It's just about getting that value, having those value plays. Even things like Springload. Very, very important for Alan because the plan is, keep these 2-card hands, pitch a blue, Spider's Bite, Springload. And that's one of the most efficient plays you can possibly make in that spot.
Absolutely. And, Liam dealing with sort of the first cycle of his deck, so we haven't seen any big dominated arrows yet. Not too many sort of top of the deck scry effects other than Scout the Periphery. There we go. I think we see our first
Spire Sniping. Going to take a look at 2 cards. I think I saw a Widowmaker as one of those 2 cards. So we could be seeing potentially our first dominated arrow here. Of course, Alan, with that one piece of equipment, very, very critical for breaking up something like a Widowmaker's damage potential.
Yeah, honestly, a big thing to keep in mind while drafting, even if you're doubting sort of the power level of some of these equipment, I do think it is very important to at least pick up one so you can deal with a card like Widowmaker.
Yeah, in this case, it's going to be a Sedation Shot revealed. Maybe a couple options there for Liam.
I do believe this has an aim counter yep. Oh, maybe not. I thought he tapped it. I guess it was for Azalea's ability.
Yeah, maybe the dominate tracking. So it's just going to go ahead and get through the first 2 damage of this entire match, picking up that inertia as well.
Interested to see if we see a Destructive Deliberation come into play here for Al now. We see how powerful
there's a lot of them in the deck. Yeah,
these tokens.
Very possible. I know for sure what we're going to see is Spider's Bites. Mm-hmm. Those are going to be doing their thing, getting in there for that 1 damage. Maybe setting up some future attacks, but if you're Alan, look, you have the life total lead. You've given up very few cards in deck. I think things are going exactly how Alan drew them up thus far.
Yeah, I think this is sort of a tried and true method for this archetype is to utilize these sort of low-ish costed weapons that come in for these 1 instances of damage and effectively sort of take your opponent down by death by 1,000 cuts here.
Yeah, how about Spider's Bite? Number 2, big surprise as that comes in for another attack. This one is going to get a block from Liam, followed up by a bleed out here.
So heads up block by Liam.
Yeah, could have been an absolutely free bleed out. I believe that's a blue bleed out potentially. Could be a red. I know there's both.
Yeah, it does look red to me.
Okay, it is red.
Yeah, so the second Spider's Bite, obviously the redundant resource, we don't need the discount, but often when Spider's Bite into Spider's Bite, the second one is sort of a good idea to block. We do see this bleed out fall into a malign here for 2, a yellow malign.
Yeah, nice little value turn. Knew that Arsenal could not be kept because of that inertia, so just go ahead, fire it off. And Life total again, swinging in Allen's favor. Things going very well thus far for the Azuri player. Can Liam start to put together those big dominated arrows? We saw the first one on the last turn, finally leaking some damage. And I'll say this too, Allen's deck does have a lot of 2-blocks. It is possible to just make big numbers and let that be enough. You don't always have to dominate. And here is a 6-power arrow. So let's see how this lines up with Allen's blocking options on this turn.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Brian, I don't think that this sort of this turn loop for Liam is going to win the game for him. We do see Allen clearly in control, actually sort of the beatdown deck and the defensive deck, totally outvaluing Liam at this point with these sort of single arrow attacks on the Azalea's turn. I think Liam desperately needs to find his pumps and desperately needs to get some big dominated arrows that have on-hit effects or, plus effects like Widowmaker to sort of put pressure on Allen Lau. If Allen Lau gets enough room, he's just going to start swapping and stuff with Azuri.
I will tell you, there is some potential, and I think this mostly comes into play against maybe less experienced players, so I don't think it's going to work against Allen Lau. You can function as a fatigue deck as Azalea. You can just present big arrow, big arrow, big arrow, basically invest one card into a 6 damage effect, and that can be enough to run out players. However, the way Allen has played these early turns with this heavy emphasis on Spider's Bite, I do not think it's going to be successful here.
Yeah, absolutely. Another inertia token for Allen Lau, pitching another Destructive Deliberation as well. Just an absolute critical maximum of those cards in his deck.
First pick, pack 1, was red Destructive Deliberation. First pick, pack 3, red Destructive Deliberation. Very high premium on this card for
Infectious
Allen.
Host tossing back the inertia token to Bennet here.
And this was a late pick for Allen, and one that I think he was quite excited to see. Just a very good late value pick for exactly this type of scenario. What's your feeling on Infectious Host? Where do you rate that card?
I think it's really good. Honestly, when I was watching Lucas Oswald draft and I saw it passed and they pack one, pick one, and saw a yellow Deadly Duo taken, I was like, okay, this is a force, because I think this card can be incredible, and we see its effect here on Liam.
Yeah, that's a big swing that we just saw from Allen, and I think he'll be very happy to get that out of what I believe was his 10th pick in Pack 3. So a lot of value there.
I mean, 0 for 4 at worst, and I know this card is so powerful it's actually playable in Constructor right now and used as sort of an anti-Codex of Frailty against these Lexi decks. We do see a Lace with Bloodrot here out from Liam Bennet, our first sort of big pump, Spire Siping, exactly what you want to see. Looking at the top 2 cards of the deck, potentially going to dominate an arrow on this, which is what Liam needs to get back into this game.
Yeah, and I think we are finally doing it on this turn. We are going to see some successful setup. Going to go ahead and Ravenous Rabble first, revealing Red Arrow. It looks like an infecting shot on top. So this is a nice bit of damage output for Liam for really the first time all game, and going to need to close the life total gap here a bit if he's going to get back into this one.
Yeah, and Allen Lau, no Arsenal because of that inertia token, so no surprise with the prevention effect or potentially like a trap out of Arsenal that Allen could have been sitting on. So I think Liam's actually going to get in a decent amount of damage this time.
Yeah, unfortunately, a yellow Ravenous Rabble was the play there, so not quite the full 4, just coming in for 3. But we still do have this infecting shot ready to go. Getting that buff potentially from this Lace, and a nice big dominated arrow headed the way of Allen Lau. Looking for that 8 on the die. It's there somewhere. Promise.
And this is threatening 2 Bloodrock Box tokens.
9. Got an aim counter on this as well. Not bad. 9 dominate coming through. And that is going to hit. It's like you said, going to bring some Bloodrot Pox tokens alongside it.
I mean, that's a huge turn for Liam. We went from sort of what I thought was quite a losing position to potentially turning this game around. Allen Lau having 2 cards in hand, likely we'll see the Spider.
Yeah, not bad. Oh, so that was a Frailty.
So that was the arrow.
Yep, Frailty arrow, Lace with Bloodrot. So pretty nice there when your opponent's main game plan has shown to be Spider's Bite. You don't mind hitting with that Frailty token, also offering some damage on the next turn. Would not shock me if Allen wants to prioritize just preventing this damage. Maybe going to pitch to that Bloodrot Pox if there's a blue available. It does look like there may be a blue Malign in hand. Feisty Locals doing what it does, coming in 4-3. An annoying card is Feisty Locals. Especially when you get to late game situations.
Absolutely.
But again, talk about the type of cards Allen prioritizes. It is things like Feisty Locals, Freewheeling Renegades, which we see in hand. Cards that create very awkward blocking decisions when you get to this low life total, low deck density type scenario.
Yeah, I think Feisty Local is a very good 0-card hand after blocking with 3, especially as we get to the late game. Like you said, catch 22 on the block, just getting pumped. We see Liam load an arrow here. Yep, I'm just gonna run out another arrow. I think Liam really needs one more of those sort of big pivot turns in order to make this game extremely close.
Yeah, and Liam has a good second cycle. There's been a lot of powerful cards pitched. I don't know if he's going to get to enact that second cycle, though, given what his life total looks like, especially now Alan Lau just going to go ahead and take the bill here off this shot. There is an inertia token, but maybe Alan, looking to get a little bit wider on this turn, does have the sneak attack available. So I think we're going to see a heavy dose of Spider's Bite here, try and get Liam down to a very vulnerable life total, and then we're going to get to the Azuri shenanigans. Switching some cards, demand overblocks, and put Liam in very uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Does Alan Lau have any attack reactions in the deck?
I don't believe so. I think it's actual 0 attack reactions. Unfortunately, didn't pick up something like those sandals to go ahead and give that sneak attack buff. It is going to be a pitch sneak attack here. Follow up looks to be a bleed out.
Mm-hmm.
So getting it a little wider here, and I think the last card in hand may be that Freewheeling Renegades. So just demanding cards from Liam here. Lethal, lethal, lethal. You present it over and over, and it puts your opponent in a very tough spot. Come to Fight going to dodge that Spider's Bite, but this go around for the Freewheeling Renegades, coming in for 6. This is going to have that Spider's Bite trigger active. Could demand 2 cards here.
Yeah, a lot of pressure and looking to potentially lock Liam out of this game pretty quickly with these sort of redundant weapons. Putting Liam down at 1, we get into that sort of Kadachi lock situation.
Yeah.
And then all it takes is a big attack followed up on that, and we'll surely see Liam leak potentially 1 damage after that. So I think Liam's turn following after this is critical to know if this game is going to sort of end in that sort of circular loop, or if we're going to have a close game. Because, Alan Lau is at 5. We only need sort of one, I think 1 pump and a dominated arrow, maybe
Very
even
true.
not dominated, right?
Yeah, very true.
That's the interesting thing about dominate. As you get down to the lower life totals, it becomes I guess relevant for closing out the game, but also sort of less relevant because your opponent doesn't have the decision to not block with cards. They're going to have to toss the hand anyway.
Very true. Yeah, and it doesn't take a huge amount of cards here. Something like a scout. Look at the top card, flip in. Yeah, and here we see a flipped trap, I believe, coming face up.
That's the first card that was pitched this game.
I believe so, yep. This is that first inertia trap.
So is there
surely by Liam.
I believe there might be a Peace of Mind under that, or another trap and a Peace of Mind.
Yeah, I didn't see the order of that pitch, but that is the next 2 cards coming. So a very, very defensive hand this next go-around for Liam. Unfortunately, though, when you're in the Kadachi lock position...
Pretty bad.
Yeah, all those defensive cards, they're exactly the same. All you need to do is put each one in front of a Spider's Bite. This asking Alan Lau a question about what he wants to do on the Seek Horizon. It looks like a red Seek Horizon to me.
Looks yellow to me, but it's always hard to tell from here. I do want to note that after those defense reactions and traps, I do believe Liam has a Widowmaker plus a red arrow under there. So those are going to be the next 5 cards. Liam drawing up to 4 here, so drawing those defensive cards, and we'll have, I believe, a good arrow as the top card of the deck right here.
He's got to get to that arrow.
I mean, he's at 1. It's tough.
Yeah, a lot of these cards going to be committed to blocking these Spider's Bites. Very uncomfortable position for Liam Bennet here. And this game played out exactly how Alan drew it up.
Mm-hmm.
Spider's Bite after Spider's Bite, slowly widowing Liam down. Here's a looking for a scrap, going to get a little wide. Does have the banish available.
Yeah.
Breakpoint, demanding 2 cards.
Yeah, yellow looking for a scrap at this point is pretty devastating for Liam.
There's going to be a red piece of mind. Yeah,
Yep.
nice clean block there. But only 1 card left in hand here. And it is going to be Isolate coming through. That's going to be met with the trap and leaving Liam again with only a 1-card hand. Expect to see an arsenal here and a pass.
Yeah, going to be pretty hard for... Well, Liam does have the Ponder token, so I guess gets a choice sort of on this arsenal. But in a really tough spot, you're going to need to keep sort of a larger hand in order to take Alan down from 5.
Yeah, Liam has to block every Spider's Bite and has to overblock every single stealth attack because it represents lethal. And I just don't know how you get out of that position. That's exactly where Azuri wants to get you.
Yeah, and then once Alan now starts threatening this Azuri ability, I mean, we've seen it. We've only seen 3 rounds of draft, but I would say a million times is where you can't commit to overblocking when you're down at 1. You have to block Spider's Bite, and you don't have the card economy to overblock an Azuri attack.
13 cards, I believe, left for Alan right now, including cards in hand. Plenty to get the job done with Liam Bennet at 1 life. Is there a card Liam can find to go ahead and break this horrible cycle he finds himself in?
There's a yellow spire sniping to block. Did Liam have 2 traps? Was it 2 traps in Peace of Mind, Brian?
Yes, I believe it was.
Okay, so one of those traps I believe is an arsenal.
Yeah,
or in
we
hand.
can expect so. Again, Spider's Bite. Give me a card. You have no choice.
And looks like Alan Lau has drawn back to his deck as well. We see the yellow Infectious Host, which was one of the first cards pitched, which means surely Destructive Deliberation in hand, I believe. We see the Azuri ability popping back in. There's a Destructive. Liam responding with the trap that we talked about that was an Arsenal. You know, kind of face up for Alan. Alan should have known about it, but at least we're getting the cards. Liam doesn't really have a choice.
Yeah,
on
even
his
face
turn.
up, Alan plays that the same way. I think you do exactly the same thing. And I don't think, just judging body language, I don't think Alan thought he won the game there. I think he knew it was coming and is just content to continue with this loop.
Yep, and Alan Lau also knows no more defensive options for Liam left in the deck. Has surely, paid attention to those cards pitched, and Liam played all 3 defensive options sort of back to back there. Alan Lau knowing that his next Azuri is probably going to close out the game if this game of pure attrition doesn't do it by itself.
Yep. Spiders bite
Well,
all
also,
day long. Destructive Deliberation coming down is blocked cleanly, but no hand for Liam once more. How many cards left in that deck? Has to draw 4 new ones. Are they the last 4? 1 card left for Liam.
Yeah.
And I expect we'll see a similar turn cycle this go around. Spiders bite.
Yep, this is going to likely, Liam will be fatigued here. Alan Lau also does have the insurance of a brush off an arsenal for whatever that's worth. I don't think it'll be worth much here, but Spiders Bite's probably going to get the job done here. Liam, 1 card in hand, 1 card in arsenal.
Yeah, and that is going to get the fist bump. Beautifully played game by Alan Lau. Exactly textbook. Not only in terms of when he sat down to play the game, when he drafted this deck, this is exactly what Alan was looking to do. And like I said, I'm sitting there watching Alan draft, and I'm thinking, this guy drafts differently. And look, I'm not tooting my own horn when I say this. This isn't like my suggestion that I have figured this format out. I certainly